2.58 feet north of Bow Lane, Central Islip.
Good evening. If you could please give us your name and address,
20 Silkram 8 Violet Street, Central Islip, New York.
and you're here on the shed, having the shed rear yard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there any questions from the board on this?
No question.
No. Planning, any comments on this?
No comment.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this matter? Okay, I'll take a motion, please.
Motion to grant the application for a period of, motion to grant the application.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Your application's granted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Application number 105-25, Richard and Diane Haberstroh. Permission to leave one-story addition, 4.1 by 6.9, having front yard of 36.5 feet instead of required 40 feet. Residence A District, east side of Locust Avenue, 177.34 feet north of Montauk Highway, Oakdale.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Christina Fry, an attorney with offices at 7 Pine Ridge Drive, Smithtown, New York, 11787. On behalf of homeowners Richard and Diane Haberstroh, I'm here before you today requesting a 36.5-foot front yard rather than the required 40 feet for a 4.1 by 6.9 wood frame addition for a vestibule. I believe this is the same vestibule you granted in 1993, but I'm here before you at the request of the zoning board.
Okay, any questions from the board?
No questions.
Planning, any comments?
No comment.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this matter? Take a motion, please.
Make a motion to grant the application.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application's
Good
granted.
evening, thank you.
Application number 106-25, Donna Marziano McDougal. Permission to use dwelling for two-family, family use only pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-419.1. Residence B District, west side of North Clinton Avenue, 456.81 feet south of Howells Road, Bay Shore.
Good evening. Your name and address, please?
Donna Maranzino, 190 North Clinton Avenue, Bay Shore, New York, 11706.
And you're going to be there with your daughter?
Yes,
And basis on a medical condition for yourself?
correct.
Okay. Any questions from the board on this?
No questions.
Planning, any comments?
No comment.
Is there anyone else that'd like to be heard in this matter? Come on up, sir. Give us your name and address.
Excuse me. My name is Robert Jarasak. My address is 7 Bacon Road, St. James, New York, 11787. I own the property next to Donna, and it is a two-family house that I bought 8 years ago, which used to be a sober house. I renovated the house, cleaned it up. It's now rented as a two-family, two-bedroom upstairs, three-bedroom downstairs. It's rented to Section 8 tenants. The house gets inspected by both housing authorities every year, and I get a constant barrage of complaints from my next-door neighbor. It's to the point that I know.
Wait,
the
so wait,
town-
let me correct, you don't live here.
I don't live there.
You're a bad landlord, and you're here to complain about somebody who lives there, trying to have their mother live with them? Just so we're clear.
Pardon?
What is your point?
My point is, I own the house. Okay, my next-door neighbor, who has a ton of violations, gives me nonstop complaints from the town. Okay,
But she's
my
allowed to-
tenants,
wait a
my
while, wait a
tenants are
while, wait a
getting
while,
harassed.
Wait.
Yeah,
She the next
A
door neighbor?
resident has the right to contact the town if they feel there are violations. There's nothing wrong with that. You may not like, hang on, you may not like it, but she has the right to do it. And the town will do as they see fit, and eventually it'll end up in a court, potentially.
Okay,
So
you
wait, what is the problem?
Does
So
she-
what
does
is
she-
the problem?
Pardon, does she have the right to put a sprinkler in a front yard?
But
and
that's not why
sprinkle-
we're here. We're
Okay.
here, hang on, we're here to see whether or not she complies and is entitled to a family use, which she meets the criteria. Whether you and she have an issue, that's not before us.
Right.
Okay.
What's before us is, does she meet the 4 elements?
Right, she complies with the law, so we're not...
Correct, okay.
So you said your point,
Well, that's what I'm here for.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here to say my point. It's been a nonstop battle, and I don't believe expanding the use is going to be in the benefit of the neighborhood. It's been a nonstop battle, and I don't believe an expansion of the use because of what's going on is heading in the right direction.
I think that everything you've said tonight is irrelevant to her application.
Okay, then that is what it is.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this matter?
We got it.
Planning, any comments?
No, no comment.
Then I'll take a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we grant the application.
And I'll second it.
3 years.
For a period of 3 years?
For a period of 3 years, yes.
Thank you. So the application's been granted for 3 years, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Arabelle.
Application number 107-25, Gary and Joan Henderson. Permission to leave patio on side property line and driveway having side yard of 2.6 feet instead of required 4 feet each, and to relocate 6-foot fence to property line not having a required setback of 10 feet. Residence A District, northwest corner of Moss Place and Gladstone Avenue, West Islip.
Your name and address, sir, for the record?
Gary Henderson, 1 Moss Place, West Islip.
And just here on the patio, you've got a driveway, and then the fence,
Got a fence.
right? All right, any questions from the board on this? Planning, I'm sure you have comments on the fence?
Yeah, so this is a 1,200 square foot lot. It doesn't quite meet the exception in code for a corner lot, but it's within the normal range that the board would usually grant as an exception for them.
Okay. Anybody else like to be heard in this matter? No? All right, I'll take a motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion we grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, application's granted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Application number 106-25, Michael and Ellen Trentacosti. Permission to leave driveway having front yard occupancy of 48% instead of permitted 40%. Residence AAA District, south side of Terry Road, 602.92 feet east of Bedford Avenue, Hauppauge.
Good evening, Council. How are you? Mike Trenicott, 748 Terry Road, Hauppauge, New York. Indeed asking for permission or a variance for the driveway conformance.
Okay, any questions from the board at this time?
No
Planning,
questions.
any comments?
It's certainly a bit higher than the board would usually grant for people. I don't really know if there's any specific reasoning to give a higher grant than what would normally be given.
Terry Road is quite a busy place. I was trying to maximize the space of the front yard. One of your planners was actually kind enough to go back and forth with me when I was doing the drawing. Took on the project myself, probably got away with myself with some of the different curb cuts as I was trying to shape it out. So the idea was to have enough parking and to be able to safely turn around with a motor court and get out of Terry Road. And there's been some speed signs that have been put in recently, 400 feet east and west of my driveway. So I would hope that you would agree. I actually planted like 460, 470 different bushes, shrubs, and made a lot of garden beds and perseverated over the different slopes that I had to do in the driveway for the rainwater. So tried to mitigate, having a larger driveway, but certainly didn't intend for it to be 48%. So hoping you wouldn't mind granting that variance.
Terry Road is definitely a local collector and possibly a minor arterial.
In that case, the board has in the past taken into consideration a busier road, giving a little more leeway. I would say 3% just within that range.
Okay. Is there anyone else would like to be heard in this matter? All right, I'll take a motion, please.
I'd make a motion that we approve the application.
All in favor? All right, application's granted. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Application number 109-25, Yanira Rivera. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code, Section 68-602, to leave second-story deck having front yard of 14.4 feet instead of required 15 feet, and shed having rear yard of 1.1 feet instead of required 2 feet. Residence B District, southwest corner of Les Street and Denver Avenue, Bayshore.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services, with offices at 231 Islip Avenue, Islip, New York. We're here tonight to establish an accessory apartment. The dwelling is owner-occupied. The driveway has been approved by engineering, and the apartment is 516 square feet. We're also here to maintain a second-story deck that's been there for about 20 years or so, and it maintains a front yard of 14.4 instead of the required 15, and a shed that has also been there for about 20 years. It's small, it's 105 square feet, and needs a rear yard variance of 1.1 instead of the required 2.
Okay, any questions from the board at this time?
No
No
questions.
planning, any comments?
No comment.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Take a motion, please.
Motion to grant the application for a period of 3 years with regard to the accessory apartment and to grant the balance of the application.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Application's granted for a period of 3 years.
Application number 110-25, Jesus and Ada Estrada. Permission to leave gazebo having front yard of 7 feet instead of required 27 feet. 6-foot fence having front yard of 6.7 feet instead of required 10 feet, shed having side yard of 0.5 feet, and second shed having rear yard of 1.7 feet instead of required 2 feet each. Residence A District, southwest corner of Martinstein Avenue and Deer Park Street, Bay Shore.
Good evening again. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services, with offices at 231 Islip Avenue, Islip, New York. We are here to maintain 2 sheds. Both of them are the exact same dimensions, 75 square feet. They've been there for about 10 to 15 years. The gazebo is 140 square feet, and the 6-foot fence is about 7 feet from the property line. However, the exception I know is at 11,250. This property is 11,666, so it's just slightly over the exception. And across the street on this second front yard is a Town of Islip. The GIS has it marked as a landfill dump, so there is no neighbor across the street on the other side. It's just a huge town lot.
He's trying. Apparently, he's having some Wi-Fi issues.
Okay.
No court report, Wi-Fi.
What's with the gazebo?
Wouldn't have happened if we were in town hall.
Looking at it. Oh, it's landfill.
It's the old Sonia Road thing.
So you should all go to the next town before you make a ruckus.
So on the opposite side of Deer Park Street is the old Sonia Road landfill. It's now still elevated but used for car storage. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that.
I am.
We've had these gazebo cases before, and
Oh, that's
they haven't fared well. What can you tell us about this? Not that we have anything against gazebos.
Or landfills.
I think typically on a second front yard, we would adhere to the zoning regulation and move it back, but I think because across the street, there is no residential neighborhood. It is a Town of Islip dump, which is now being used for car storage. There is no residences anywhere across the street at all.
Yeah, we're a little hamstrung. We don't have an area.
He's working on it.
Planning, have any comments in the meantime?
I'm sorry, I have not been entirely paying attention to the direction of the conversation. What was the,
On the gazebo. We're just trying to talk about the merits of the second front yard.
Right, she's saying there's car storage across the street.
Yes, there is a landfill on the other side of the street in this case, which obviously we're failing to represent now. So there's no, in the sense of that, there's no residences across the street that would be impacted. The people driving along the road would be able to see it. That's sometimes been a concern in the past. I don't know how tall the gazebo is necessarily. I don't know if we have that
There's
information on
11
hand.
feet, right?
The top of it
Height.
is slightly over the fence. I believe it's 8 feet tall.
It says HT.
So a couple of feet higher than the fence.
Yeah, I think you
You're
can
right.
just
It's
see
11
the
feet.
top of
11
it.
feet.
It's 11 feet high.
What does the code allow?
It's metal.
Well, that's within code allowances, up to 14.
I do have a photo.
I guess we can. So we're
Shows the
looking at right
fence,
now.
and it shows just the
I
top
guess
of the
it's not showing
gazebo
much.
peeking over.
No, it's helpful. It shows that it's industrial too on the other side of the street.
It does at least show that much, yes. But otherwise not loaded well. Maybe it should just come up. Yeah, it's supposed to just come up automatically.
It's Jay's fault. Jay needs
Thank you, sir.
Great. Out of your way.
The gazebo's behind the fence?
Yes. So on the bottom left picture, you could see just the top of the gazebo peeking over.
He says it's a Wi-Fi issue, but.
Well, I guess it's a good sign that we can find it. As opposed to that.
Yeah. Oh, you have it on your phone?
There we are.
There it is.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Ken fixed it.
So no residents across the entire street.
Oh, really?
All right, so yeah, the gazebo is right there. And then there's Deer Park Street, and then there's the landfill on the other side.
And the 6-foot fence is, okay?
Yeah, similar to the other case we already heard, it's very close to meeting the exception for a corner lot to begin with, so well within what the board would normally give somebody.
All right, so we okay with the gazebo then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, making that exception in the decision, obviously.
Yeah, that's right, as long as it's in the decision about what's across the street.
Is there anyone else that'd like to be heard in this application? Okay, then I'll take a motion, please.
Motion to grant the application.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Application's granted.
Thank you. Have a good night.
That was Chris and I'll be down. Application number 111-25, Valerie and Marianne Sadowski and John Max Hackman Jr. Permission to leave detached garage 25.3 by 50.2, having rear yard of 8.8 feet instead of required 10 feet. Residence AAA District, west side of MacArthur Boulevard, 300 feet north of John Street, Hopkins.
Matthew Bush, 2615 Union Boulevard, Islip, New York, architect on behalf of the homeowner.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding you, sir.
Matthew Bush, 2615 Union Boulevard, Islip, New York, architect on behalf of the homeowner.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Can you tell us something about the application?
Yes, so we're here for an accessory garage at 448 MacArthur Boulevard in Hauppauge. The building was originally permitted and approved as of right with a 10-foot setback to each property line for the proposed structure. Upon receipt of the final survey, it was discovered that we had encroached 1.2 feet into the required setback. While it is an error in the construction, we don't feel that it's a major difference in changing character versus what was originally approved as of right. We did go through an exercise of mapping out the adjacent dwellings to understand the impact of this. The closest of those being 179 Park Avenue, which is 100.1 feet away from this structure as of right, and in its current state is 98.9 feet. Two other dwellings were 169 Park Avenue and 199 Park Avenue. 169 Park Avenue is 110 feet away.
I think what you're telling us, it's not substantial.
Yes.
Planning, any comments on this?
Yeah, as he was saying, it was permitted by the building department. They got issued the permits, and when it was built out, it was a bit closer. It's slightly larger than it was proposed to be, about like 20 square feet. Very small in the grand scheme of a structure this large. I would tend to agree. It's about 1 foot closer than it was otherwise supposed to be in a conforming location.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this matter? Ma'am? If you could please let us speak.
I received a letter in February this year.
I'm sorry, ma'am, if you could give us your name and address?
Mary Ann Prescia, 179 Park Avenue, I'm the rear property.
Okay.
We have it.
I addressed this issue in October of 2023, before anything was built. So I asked please bear with me, I'm extremely nervous. I was wondering if maybe my daughter could speak for me.
If she wants to come up and speak, she can speak.
You want to do it? I do have some pictures of what I look at.
Okay.
So
If
she
you could
had
just give us
called.
your name and address.
Oh, Gina Magnella, 2 Union Street, Miller Place, New York, but I'm
Can I
here for
just
my
ask
mother.
you one question so we can narrow the issues? The question is, it's supposed to be 10 feet, and because of building error, it's 8.8, so it's.
Correct.
Hang on. I thought you said you were nervous. Okay, so it's 1.2 feet too close. That's what we're dealing with.
I know.
I thought your daughter said, whatever. Is that what you're objecting to?
She's asking that privacy trees be put up because it's too close to the property line. And
Be
in
what?
it, it's too close to the property line, so she's asking that privacy trees be put up because they also dug out dirt behind the shed, uncovering the roots to her trees. So if the trees fall over and hit the shed, she's going to be held liable for it.
Okay, we don't have the authority to
Yeah,
make somebody plant.
This isn't Brookhaven. We don't tie covenants
It's
to
in
our
Iceland.
ZBA decisions. We can condition it, but
We can what?
we can make it a condition, but
So that's what we're
it's
asking.
not like Brookhaven.
to
where we
add
put
a condition
covenant
to put-
into the decision where they have to follow it.
Okay.
And they,
Again, we're only talking about 1 foot here.
But the cesspool isn't tied to
know
the
that.
garage, Mom.
but I'm talking about a garage that I was told by the town what it was going to be. And I was also told that a detached garage could not have running water by your town.
It was built as a right.
And there's a cesspool that was put back by the property line also.
Attached to the garage.
So I'm asking that it be re-inspected, because the cesspool, I don't feel should
Well,
be.
that's a separate issue. Right now, we're.
It involves the
discuss-
garage.
Wait. We're discussing the dimensions. And the dimensions at the closest point is 8.8 instead of 10. So we're not talking about running water or riparian rights or anything like that.
So what do I have to-
What we're talking about is 1.2 feet. And we don't have the power to make them plant trees or bushes.
So,
So what is it that you want us to do? Tell them to rip it down?
no.
Okay, so what is it that you want us to do?
I want my tree roots covered, they loosely put soil over them, but rain will wash it away. If the trees fall down.
We don't
then
have
I-
that authority. We're just for the physical
Well,
dimensions.
what do you do then? Why
What-
did I get the letter?
This is what we do, is physical dimensions.
Well, she
Whether or
asked
not
why she got the
We're going
letter.
to allow them to be at 8.8 instead of 10. That's what, just the dimensions. We can't make them plant or put soil. If there's something that they did wrong, that's something you need to see counsel about. We don't have that power to do that.
Right. You asked why you got the letter, because you're in the vicinity of the property, so you're supposed to, by law, get that letter. But the issue is, we're dealing with 1 foot here, and it's not a lot of
Okay,
relief that he's
so,
requesting.
okay, I understand that. And the letter also gave a length and a width, but gave no height.
I don't think I think it complies.
It complies.
That's why it's not
Massive.
an issue. I'm sorry?
I have pictures of what I look at now.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
we
it-
have pictures also.
Yeah, but it complies with the law.
Okay, so what do I do to get the cesspool inspected?
If there's a cesspool back there, that you have to call code enforcement.
Code
You
enforcement.
should call code enfor, oh, I forgot to turn my mic on, hold on.
I think she means a drainage.
There we go. Can you hear me now? You should call code enforcement and tell them that there's a cesspool. We can't do anything about that. We're here just to, where the
Just the
property is
garage.
located. If there's a cesspool put in without a permit, I'm sure there's someone in the town who's gonna require a whole stack of paperwork and nonsense, so.
You also may want to try the county Department of
Yeah,
Health.
Department of Health, Department of Public Works, because they're probably hooked up to a sewer, I don't know. That's what you should do. You should definitely call code enforcement and tell them that there's a cesspool there. But
Okay,
that really is not relevant to here, unfortunately, I'm
Ma'am, would you
sorry.
like
Okay, so you simply sent me a letter to tell me that they put it too close to my
Yes.
property.
No, we put you on
And I
notice,
have no
ma'am.
option.
Yeah, we put you on notice, as is required by the law, put you on notice, there's a variance happening, this person is asking for relief to build something a little bit too close to the property line, you've been notified.
Ma'am, would you like to
And
submit-
you're allowed to come, as the letter stated, you're allowed to come here and make your opinion known, which you did, and we gave you some pretty good advice. We can't do anything about that cesspool, all we're concerned with is where the shed, garage, whatever it is located.
Okay, I'll
You should
follow.
definitely call code enforcement.
Thank
Would you
you.
like to submit those photos, ma'am?
Huh?
You want to submit the pictures?
Yeah, that's also probably important, I forgot to say that part.
Because I do have a picture of the cesspool too back there.
Please submit them, ma'am.
Do you have
Let me
copies?
say,
Because they're
some are,
going,
this is just for size reference. This is for size reference. And this is what I look at.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, it's all size reference, really, and this, that's a tree root.
okay, just give him the doc, he's not on the board.
There-
As
just-
much as he'd like to be, he's not.
Thank you very much for
Okay,
explaining
good
it
luck.
to me. I
Is there-
appreciate it.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this matter? No? All right, I'll take a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the application.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application's granted.
Thank you.
He's our sixth board member. Seventh, Nick is the sixth.
Application number 112-25, Greg Levy. Permission to leave in-ground pool with water feature having side yard of 13 feet instead of required 18 feet, and not having 4 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. Pool equipment having rear yard of 3 feet instead of required 6 feet. Propane tanks not having 4 feet behind the front line of the dwelling, and 6-foot fence having front yard of 13.5 feet instead of required 15 feet. Residence AA District, 278 Cluster, southwest corner of Revlin Court and Astor Drive, Sayville.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the applicant, Steve Bertolino, 130 West Main Street, East Islip, New York. This board probably doesn't recall this because you do so many, but we were here back in 2018 for this installation of the swimming pool. At that time, the board granted us a relaxation of the front yard setback from 44 feet to 30. It looks like we are at 28.6, so we're off 1.4 feet, obviously about 17 inches. The call of the meeting sets forth that we're looking to be 4 feet behind the house. By my math, if we only made a mistake of 1.4, it seems to me that the board would have granted the less than 4 feet behind the house at that time when they granted us the 30-foot. With respect to the pool itself, the homeowner added a water feature on the west side. I would point out to the board that the west side of this property is a green belt, runs north to south, pretty much from Sunrise Highway all the way down to, I guess, the railroad tracks in Sayville. There are no residences to the west of this property. The waterfall doesn't really affect anybody. If anything, it kind of adds to the natural setting that's already there. On that note as well, I point out to the board that the street, Revelin Court, is a dead end. The street actually only serves two homes. It serves the subject property and it serves the property across the street. And the pavement does not even extend to the point where the swimming pool is not meeting the setback. And for that matter, with respect to the 6-foot fence, when we were here back in 2018, the board denied a request to maintain the fence at 11 feet off of that front yard, and now it's looking like it's at 13.5. So the homeowner, when the project was done, expanded the driveway, put in a new fence along the front yard, and if you couple all this together, you'll see that from the survey, the pavement on Revelin Court does not extend to the west to the area where the fence encroaches 1.5 feet too close, if you will. So although we're asking for a front yard relaxation of the 6-foot fence that this board does generally not grant, I submit to you that this front yard fence is really facing a preserve, a woods, if you will. It's not right on the road. At the point where it meets the road, the fence is in compliance. Lastly, we have these propane tanks, which are in the corner. My understanding that it's been requested from either planning or building that some bollards be installed in front of the tanks. The tanks, if you notice, are right at the edge of the driveway, so we can understand the concern to have the bollards installed. But once again, it's facing this Revelin Court, which is a very short dead-end block that only serves this parcel and the other. We don't feel that any of these relaxations have any environmental detriment to the neighborhood. Character is pretty much going to stay the same. What we're asking for is fairly de minimis, and we hope that the board sees fit to grant the application in all respects.
Mr. Bertolino, what's the purpose of the propane tanks?
It serves the gas heater.
For the house, or for the...
My understanding is for the pool heater. Mr. Italiato, it very well may serve the fireplace as well. I'm not certain on that, but my understanding is it's for the pool heaters primarily.
It looks like there's a pool heater shown on the survey over in the other corner of the property.
Yes, that's correct. That's part of the request. It looks like that. I believe at the time, I've done this too many times, unfortunately, when the code changed from a 4-foot setback to a 6-foot setback, there were a lot of installs where the 4-foot was done. So here, we're actually asking, I think it's 3.6 on the call of this meeting, 3-foot instead of the 6-foot. So it wasn't deliberate. I'm going to attribute it to the point when that code changed, and we were just missing a lot of that on the 4-foot to 6-foot.
The question is, though,
the
the
field.
propane tanks and the pool heater are both for the pool?
Yes.
Okay.
The 6-foot fence, it's at the top of the pool. What is on the other side, the property adjacent? What is that?
Woods. Well, when you say adjacent to what's...
Just on the other, I see the property.
North of it.
North? That's woods.
Just woods?
Well, it's...
Can you zoom out some more?
It's, I'll call it woods. It's just land that's part of the woods to the west. It's really some...
Who owns that? Is that a paper street?
It's a paper street, and it dead ends, if you will. You can see how the pavement is stopped or ends even before the pool if you were to draw a parallel line, even
could
before
see
the
it.
pool, yeah. Somebody screwed it up, I don't know.
It's on the survey as well.
Okay, I see it.
But it's just woods there. So it is a front yard, but we're facing woods. Not quite
Lanny,
a...
you have any comments on this?
Yeah, so to speak to that, it's a, oh, wow, that's not good.
There you go.
It is a paper street, also part of that is owned by the town. It's actually, freshwater wetlands there, so it's very unlikely it'll ever be developed. And as he was saying, it dead ends, the part of the fence that is offending is the part where it is a paper road, there's not even pavement there. Yeah, considering the circumstances of the adjoining areas, I don't think this is problematic.
Okay, and the rest of the application? You okay?
No issue.
Okay. Any questions from the board at this time?
No, thank you.
Is anyone else that would like to be heard in this matter? No, okay, then I'll take a motion, please.
Danny?
I'll make a motion to grant the application.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, application's granted.
Thank you, good evening.
Application number 113-25, Dennis and Margaret McCall, permission to install in-ground pool, leaving rear yard of 10 feet instead of required 18 feet. Residence AA District, east side of Swindon Row, 586.34 feet north of Barnsley Lane, Sayville.
Good
Name and
evening,
address,
Dennis and Margaret McCall, 683 Swindon Row.
Speak into the microphone, you can
Sorry.
raise it.
Good evening, Dennis and Margaret McCall, 683 Swindon Row.
Can you just hear on the, is it rear yard?
Yes, just the rear yard.
Okay. Planning, any comments on this?
The rear yard abuts town-owned green space, so there's no impacted neighbor in this case.
Okay, so you're okay with it?
Yes.
Any questions from the board?
No questions.
Anyone else like to be heard in this matter?
Question is, what are we looking at?
I will take a motion, please. Can I get a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Application's granted. Thank
Is
you.
this like
Thank you.
psychedelic zoning?
It's a nice piece.
What a night.
Yeah, wow, that's a nice piece, very symmetrical.
Looks like a prison.
Application number 114-25, Laura Chiomastro and Thomas Palomera. Permission to erect two-story dwelling, leaving floor area ratio of 29.99% instead of a permitted 25%. Staircase to second-story deck, leaving side yard of 8 feet instead of required 14 feet. Egress window, leaving side yard of 10.1 feet instead of permitted encroachment setback of 11 feet. And driveway, leaving front yard occupancy of 44.98% instead of permitted 40%. Residence B District, north side of Laurel Drive, 301 feet east of Johnson Avenue, Sayville.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mel Gonzalez, MIG Architect, offices at 200 Corporate Plaza, Suite A102, Islandia, New York, 11749.
Mr. Gonzalez, what is there presently?
There is a home presently on the property.
And you want to raise it?
That is correct. They're
and you
going
wanna
to...
build a new home,
Correct.
and how much does it vary from the old home?
In terms of the square footage, or... Square footage is approximately the same, just we're slightly over on the existing. What we are is...
Slightly over 25%.
That's correct, yes, I'm sorry, to clarify that. And as far as the setback, overall setbacks, the actual existing home is tighter on the side yards than what we're proposing. At the moment, we're proposing, I believe, 15 feet, 8 inches on one side, 14 feet on the other side with an aggregate of 29.8, where 28 is required. That's for the primary dwelling. What we're requesting is relief for the area wells, which are at grade for the basement, and also for a spiral stair that leads to a second-floor deck.
I see you're at 29.99%. It sounds like somebody told you that we really like 30%.
Yes, I've been before the board many times.
I just gotta say, Mr. Gonzalez, artfitly done.
You're not leaving
Thank you.
yourself a lot of room for error.
I know.
If you come back here at 30.1.
We understand that.
Okay. I don't have any problem with this, Mr. Chairman.
But this is existing.
The front yard's
We're just trying to look at where the spiral staircase is.
Yes, it's on the, well, I could show you on a drawing if you'd like.
Yeah,
Hang on.
because everybody, you're looking at the existing condition survey.
It's on the actual architectural site plan as well as the elevations that are attached to the board.
Okay, any other questions from the board at this time?
No questions.
Planning, any comments?
The spiral staircase is actually the only thing that I would really object to in any way. It's a completely new construction. I'm not sure exactly why there needs to be this encroaching spiral staircase in this location. If it's an entire new build, it seems
May I?
like they could design it in such a way to not have that issue.
The purpose of the spiral staircase is for Thomas Palomero here, the homeowner. He likes to smoke and have a drink now and then, and his wife said, "You will not smoke in the house." Therefore, he has that little deck upstairs, small little spot, with, so that he can actually go up the spiral stairs outside to just have his space.
I mean, the existence of a spiral staircase is totally fine, but why does it need to be there?
If you look at the design of the home, I would have placed it on the rear of the home, but it blocks the windows that are where the master bedroom is. So the most logical location is to place it on the side so that it doesn't conflict with the fenestration on the home.
Can you pull out on the zoom out?
Zoom out?
What's behind it?
I like that idea.
Okay. So what is north of the property?
School.
He's going.
Yeah.
I guess it just seems to me that often the case with like a second-story deck, for instance, one of the concerns would be that you can look into the neighbor's yard. If the spiral staircase exists in this location close to the yard and it's presumably a place where he can be out there and smoke, that feels like it causes a somewhat similar problem here.
Well, a deck is...
Has anybody, I don't need to interrupt you,
Go
but
ahead.
leads up to a second-story deck, and at least I'm anathema to second-story decks that encroach because they can look into the neighbor's property. So has that been taken into consideration? Since it's going to be a deck,
Right.
it's going to be 8 feet instead of, what, 14?
The deck is not encroaching on the setback. The deck is a allowable element of the design.
Right,
So,
but when you're on the top of the staircase,
right.
you can look down into the neighbor's property.
Um,
And you're 8 feet instead of 14. I don't love that. I'm not,
Understood. In the photographs, you'll see that that side of the property, which I believe is the east side of the property, is heavily landscaped. You'll see in the photograph. I believe it's photograph, let's see.
To be honest, Mr. Gonzalez, the
Yes.
aerial that we're looking at doesn't look very heavily landscaped. I'm not doubting you. I understand that this picture, it seems that it was taken in winter.
If you could indulge me and look at number 6, okay, page number 6, photo number 4.
We have it, Chris.
Okay.
There's only one set, so give us a second.
Yes.
yeah, this is new construction.
Right.
Why couldn't you cut into the deck? This way, it may not be conveniencing your client, but it's not inconveniencing the neighbor.
Understood.
You've got to balance this.
It actually cuts into the structure of the home, not into the deck, the first floor and
But-
the second floor.
8 instead of 14, it just, again, it puts you too close, so you're looking down to your neighbors. And we're very
Understood.
cognizant about that, because we're all neighbors,
Understand.
literally and figuratively. So,
Tom, would you like to speak up on, would you like to speak about that and how you feel about it?
yeah.
Hi, Tom Palomar, 27 Laurel Drive. Currently, the house is set up where there's a bedroom on the corner of the house that clearly looks into the neighbor's backyard. We can, you know, it's
But it's not as high as this one.
Yeah,
Not
but
an
it's
issue.
on the first floor with, as
No.
your architect pointed out, substantial landscaping that does not seem to go to the second story level.
The second-story bedroom looks into the neighbor's backyard. This design right now will not have a second-story bedroom and no windows. So we'll actually be taking the ability to look into the neighbor's backyard, if I wanted to do that, away. Because right now, if I want to look in the neighbor's backyard, I go down to the corner bedroom and I can look out the window. I won't have that ability to do
The
that.
problem for us is we are charged with looking beyond this one application. And are we going to set a precedent that now we're going to allow people to build similar structures? How do we say no when you're the neighbor, all around you want to do the same thing? And now you have 3 or 4 structures, all at 8 feet, looking into your backyard. You say, whoa, I didn't plan on that. So
Well-
we have to look beyond, that's what we have to consider.
Maybe you can make a variance for someone that wants to smoke cigars and have a scotch on their deck. If you limited that, maybe you can work that out.
I don't know if that's in the code, but we'll take care of it.
See if you can do that.
It's twice variance, Tom.
My client is willing to forego the staircase.
Where's he going to smoke his cigars and drink the scotch?
He wasn't, I hope, not for nothing, I think we're doing you a favor. I have found that spiral staircases and scotch don't mix.
Oh, yeah. Bad result. Yeah. Okay.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this application? Okay. The rest of it, we're okay with?
Yeah.
All right, I'll take a motion on the application denying the staircase.
I'll make a motion to deny the application for the staircase and grant the balance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application's.
Thank you very much for your time.
Good
Appreciate
luck.
it.
You want to
Thank
take this? Yeah.
I really like the 2499 and that's good. No, that's good.
Why'd you stop with the staircase?
Somebody
Don't
does.
build it into it, like, it can't be like.
Have a good night.
Application number 115-25, 36 Washington Avenue, Inc. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islestown Code Section 68-602. Residence B District, northwest corner of Washington Avenue and McKinley Street, Brentwood.
Good evening. My name is Herbert Lemus. I live at 36 Washington Avenue in Brentwood, New York, 11717.
Can you spell your name, please?
Herbert Lemus, without T.
Spell
No
it.
T. Herber.
Okay, last name?
Lemus, Lemus.
L-E-M-U-S.
Lemus.
Mr. Lemus, because you have this property in the name of a corporation?
Yes.
What's your relationship to that corporation?
I'm the owner as a president.
So you're the sole?
I own and I'm the president of the corporation.
Okay, and this address is your home?
And yeah, I live there.
How long have you lived there?
About 5 years.
Okay. Because we've got another address. on-
Yes, 138 Cedar Heart Street in Isley Terrace.
What is that address?
My family live there.
I'm sorry?
My family, my wife and my kids.
So your wife lives at a separate address?
Yes, they live there.
This one is accessories, so he resides there. Correct?
He does. The applicant was before us in 2016 to establish this accessory apartment.
Yes, what happened is my expediter gets sick. I didn't know about the permit expire. And Frank Montero, his name, and he really got very sick and, didn't have the opportunity to renew the permits before.
Right.
But I already have the permit before for this accessory apartment.
So it's not uncommon for an accessory apartment permit to expire or lapse for a time. So typically, we might renew it anyway, but in this particular case, a good amount of time had passed, and then we saw that your mailing address is 138 Cedar
Yes.
Street. And your
Yes.
driver's license didn't reflect that until recently you got the driver's license changed?
Yeah, I did already.
Yeah, we have it in the file. That's why we scheduled it.
Yeah, because, I went to submit all the permits they require.
Okay.
Because it was too long, from the last time that I applied for the permit.
Okay, so you'll be residing in the house?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
No questions.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this matter? No? Okay, I'll take a motion, please.
Brentwood?
Brentwood.
Motion to grant the application for a period of 3 years.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Loomis.
Thank you.
Aye, oh, yeah, thank you. All in favor, aye.
Yeah, right.
Application number 790-24, adjourned from December 17, 2024, and February 11, 2025. Amanda, Barbara, and Paul Hessian. Permission to erect portico, 5 by 9.6, leaving front yard of 26.1 feet, and second-story addition, 6 by 16, leaving front yard of 31.1 feet, instead of required 40 feet each, leaving floor area ratio of 31.6% instead of permitted 25%, and to erect detached garage, 18 by 27.5, having 15 feet behind the front line of the dwelling instead of required 20 feet. Residence A District, east side of Sequams Lane Center, 185 feet south of Sequams Lane, West Islip.
Good evening. Christopher Ang, 83 East Main Street, Patchogue, New York, the design professional for the owner. This has been before the board prior. We are constructing a front portico, a second-story addition, and a proposed garage. These additions will reduce the front yard setback to the portico at 26.1 feet, and the front of the house to 31.1 instead of the required 40 feet. And the floor area ratio is 31.6 instead of the permitted 25%. And that 31.6 is because there's another application that has been approved in the area at 31.6. And the detached garage is 15 feet behind the front line of the furthest point of the dwelling, and instead of the required 20 feet. And I think that's it. So if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Planning, any comments on this?
So as he was saying, the first time this was heard, the only issue that really stood out was the amount of the garage. Everything else here is well supported by precedent in the area. At the time, it was a 5 foot behind the front line. I believe it was suggested at that hearing that it be moved to 15 feet behind the front line of the dwelling.
That's for the garage?
Correct.
Okay. And everything else
Yeah, everything else is well supported.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
No questions.
Does anyone else would like to be heard in this matter? All right, I'll take a hearing. I'll take a motion, please.
Take a hearing.
Take a motion.
I see your hearing and I raise your hand. I'll make a motion that we grant the application.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Application is granted.
Thank you. Good night.
Application number 116-25, Sayville Plaza Development Company. Permission to install 2 facial signs where only one is permitted, having height of 27.5 feet, and secondary facial sign having height of 20.58 feet instead of permitted 18 feet each, and 2 public interest signs not visible from the main thoroughfare, having area of 10.67 square feet instead of permitted 3 square feet each, and height of 17.16 feet instead of permitted 10 feet each. Business 3 District, north side of Sunrise Highway, 1,388.83 feet west of Johnson Avenue, Bohemia.
Hi, good evening. Christina Bravin, Morano Expediting, P.O. Box 39, Bethpage, New York, 11714. And just very briefly, our proposal is consistent with the other tenants in the shopping center. Floor and Decor has similar signage, as does the at-home store. Not only is it consistent with the tenants, but it's also proportionate to the location of the installation on those parapet walls. So if you have any questions on any specific signs, I could ask, or I'll just go into each sign if you need the details.
Okay, planning, any comments on this?
So, as you can see in the architectural drawings there, the secondary sign being called out here, where only one's permitted, it's the one that says mattresses. It's conveying a different message. On these big box stores, that's not terribly uncommon for that sort of thing to be the case, and it's something that we have granted in the past. The informational signs, or public interest signs, I'm sorry, not visible from the main thoroughfare, that's one indicating which one is the loading dock and which one is a sort of a pickup area behind the building. I think it's very reasonable to distinguish which one is which. The main thoroughfare situation is a fairly restricted part of code. We run into it quite often. And then, yeah, that's really it.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this matter? Any questions from the board?
No questions.
All right, then I'll take a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
All in favor? Application is granted.
Thank you.
Application number 87, oops, that is 67, -25, adjourned from February 11, 2025. 4175 Vets Partners LLC, Connect One Bank. Permission to install 4 facial signs where 2 are permitted, each having area of 86 square feet instead of permitted 57.2 square feet for the primary and 28.6 square feet for the secondary, and each having height of 48.5 feet instead of permitted 18 feet, and to install 2 ground signs where 1 is permitted, having height of 12.5 feet instead of permitted 8 feet, pursuant to ZBA number 230-94, Industrial Corridor District, northwest corner of Veterans Memorial Highway and Johnson Avenue, Ronkonkoma.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Brian Egan from the law firm of Egan & Golden, 96 South Ocean Avenue, Patchogue, New York. This is on for the second hearing, and I just want to start by saying thank you to Mr. Barbarello for spending some generous time with us on this application and the change, which resulted in a significant amendment on the scope of the application. The bank eliminated 2 of the signs and is going to amend the application to restrict it to 2 on the east and south sides of the building. So the frontage, it's on a corner that turns on Vets Highway, but the actual frontage that meets, that is on Vets Highway, and then the western side.
This
Those
was
2.
on about 3 weeks ago, right?
Correct.
But it wasn't you.
Correct. It was an associate for the firm. That's right, Mr. Wexler.
It was an associate of yours?
Yes.
Yes, he kept wanting to take our temperature, not literally. But he kept asking the temperature of the board. It's like, it's cold. Okay. Not great. Not great, but you scaled it down considerably.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. That's a good temperature.
All right, so the one thing, Mr. Egan, we're going to amend the call to read at the beginning, permission to install 2 facial signs, each having area of 86.
Correct.
Right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Make a
All right.
motion to approve the amendment.
Second, all in favor? All right, so the call has been changed. The stenographer will mark that. Planning, any comments?
Yeah, so as he was alluding to, we met on this. The primary concerns in the first hearing were the amount of facial signs, which has now been reduced to a conforming number. And the height of the signs was a concern only in the sense that this being a multi-tenant building, planning has concerns about setting a precedent where multiple tenants can all be in a row on the top of a building. We think that would be an ugly aesthetic, although I believe Mr. Egan can speak somewhat to that, so I'll give the floor to him for now.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with the look of what that aesthetic would be, and we have confirmation from the landlord that these would be the only 2 signs on that roof side parapet.
Can we make that a condition?
So can we make that in condition to the decision then?
Sure.
Mr. Egan,
Yes, that's
are
fine.
you representing the landlord or the bank?
The bank.
Okay.
And beyond that, the only other matter would be the 2 ground signs, which the previous bank that they are filling that tenancy for, I believe it was Citibank. They
Correct.
had 2 ground signs of the same size in those exact locations.
So you're okay with those?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else like to be heard in this matter? Any other questions from the board?
No questions.
All right, I'll take a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the application upon the condition that the 2 signs are the only ones on those sides of the building, as the applicant has stated.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Application is granted as modified.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Egan.
All right, here goes. Application number 88-25, adjourned from February 11, 2025. Marvin L. Linder Associates LLC. Permission to install facial and ground signs as follows. Building 1, 1 facial sign having height of 19 feet instead of permitted 18 feet, and 1 facial sign not facing main thoroughfare. Building 2, 4 facial signs having height of 21.6 feet instead of permitted 18 feet, with 1 not facing main thoroughfare. Building 3, 1 additional facial sign having area of 178.8 square feet and height of 31.9 feet instead of permitted 18 feet, and 11 facial signs having height of 25 feet instead of permitted 18 feet. Building 4, one public interest sign having area of 12 square feet instead of permitted 3 square feet. Building 6, 2 office facial signs having area of 47.4 square feet instead of permitted 32 square feet for the primary and 16 square feet for the secondary. Building 8, 4 facial signs having height of 30.2 feet and 26.3 feet instead of permitted 18 feet. 2 office facial signs having area of 139.7 square feet and 69.8 square feet instead of permitted 32 square feet for the primary and 16 square feet for the secondary. 3 additional facial signs having area of 88 square feet and 105 square feet, and 1 facial sign not facing the main thoroughfare, and 4 ground signs. Sign 1, Veterans Memorial Highway, 118.4 square feet with setback of 10.5 feet instead of required 18 feet. Sign 2, Sunrise Highway, 118.4 square feet. Sign 3, Broadway Avenue, 130.4 square feet. And sign 4, Church Avenue, 30.9 square feet instead of permitted 1 ground sign having area of 86.2 square feet. Business 3 District, northeast corner of Sunrise Highway and Broadway Avenue, through lot to Church Street, Holbrook.
Good job.
You get tomorrow off.
Thank God.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the applicant, Brian Kennedy, partner with Forcelli, Deegan, Tirana. As Ms. Pissarro indicated, we were before the board on February 11th, at that hearing, we presented all of the proposed signage that she outlined in the call of the meeting. The board indicated that they had some concerns with the proposed ground signs located on Veterans Memorial Highway and Sunrise Highway, as well as what they determined was a directory sign facing Church Street. Now, over the last several weeks, I have spent quite a bit of time speaking with Mr. Barbarello to come to what I believe is a plan that works for planning and the town and the applicant. The main directory sign will remain on Broadway. The ground signs located along Vets Highway and Sunrise Highway have been reduced from the proposed 118 square feet to 86 square feet to comply with the town zoning code. All other previously presented signs were acceptable to planning at the initial hearing and will remain unchanged. Chris Robinson from R&M Engineering is present. He's going to take you through that revised ground sign quickly, if you'd like.
Can I just interrupt you before you start? Just Nick?
Mr. Barbarello.
That's right.
Mr.
Mr. Barbarello to me. We heard from council, you've reviewed this revision. Is it acceptable to planning?
With regards to the ground signs, yes, I'm not sure what's happening or not with what we would classify as a facial directory, which we believe is not permitted by code.
Okay,
That's the one on Broadway.
so
One on the side of the
I think the
building.
ground
It's
sign
facing-
you got. Why don't you address it accordingly, please?
The directory?
Sure. We have revised the directory sign that had previously been submitted. If you look at page 7 of the pamphlet that I sent up, that was the directory sign that we had initially made application on and received a denial for, being 31 foot 10 inches high and having the sign area more of a directory where it's done in a grid at 15 by 11. The next page, actually page 8 of 9, you can see a revised sign. We brought it down from the existing building number 3, which would have been the blank corner in the top left of the building, down to the new addition at a much lower height of, don't have the number, a lower height, complying with the height, and we just have the sign names listed out on that wall of the building that's visible from Broadway. Normally, these secondary signs would have been facing Church Street behind each of the tenants.
Mr. Robinson, just so we have a complete record, the sign height is going from 31 to what, is the revised plan?
It doesn't say, but I have that number in the plan, so I'll go look at it.
Yeah, well, you take a look at that. I'll
Yep.
address this.
Sir.
Well, Mr. Robinson finds out that sign height, while I understand planning's concerns with what they have identified as a directory sign, is there any issue with, on page 8 of 9, the Sunvet Mall logo that is facing Broadway?
I do not believe so. I think that's called down here as an additional facial sign, but we don't have any issue with that.
And should this board not look favorably on the proposed directory side, as Mr. Barbarello calls it, would there be any prohibition to each of the tenants placing signage above their storefront along Church Street? Should not.
That's not before us, but I don't know if that's generally where we want to be, where there's a million signs.
We would prefer not that. The code allows the applicant to do that and spread it out.
Right. So we militate toward what you want. I got you.
I wouldn't do no
It's
such
not a
thing,
bad
Mr. Wexler.
strategy.
No,
Come
it's
on.
interesting strategy. Hear the parade of unmentionables. We can go that road, or give me what I want.
I'm merely trying to do what the code allows.
The problem with that is that putting them all on the back facing towards Church Street is not allowable without a variance.
Sure.
You
I'm sorry?
still would need a variance to do that. At minimum, it would need to be facial signs not facing the main thoroughfare, but I don't believe all the tenants in the middle, not on the corners of the building, are entitled to a second sign in the first place.
I don't think it was a real option. I
We
think it was
could
just a bad option.
debate that when we come before you
Yeah.
on it.
Did we get the number from Mr. Robbins?
It's 18 feet, Mr.
18
Wexler.
instead of 31?
Yes.
Is it on page 9?
Yeah. Oh, the height, is it the height? of
The
building?
height is
height
not
is not
indicated on there.
No, not on page 9.
Let's see.
It doesn't directly, but you can,
You can see right there.
18
doesn't.
inches for the height of the
Yeah.
letters.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's 18 inches.
The building's 20.
Mr.
Double
Barbarella,
glasses when you-
because everybody calls you that,
Sure.
I'm calling you Nick. 18 instead of 31, I mean, that seems pretty reasonable.
It's not a
You have-
variance, it's permitted.
Which
permitted.
part are we talking
Well,
about?
it's actually permitted once we acknowledge that this type of sign is permitted. It's a permitted height, 18 feet.
I'm sorry, which one are we discussing right now?
The height has been lowered from 31 foot 10 inches to 18, but it's a sign that we're discussing right now that we're not even certain, in your opinion, is a permitted sign.
The directory.
Oh, okay. I don't have any particular issues with the design necessarily. It's just, we define directory pretty strictly in our code. It's just a sign identifying two or more persons, agencies, or establishments. And if you go to the schedule of sign regulations, for a facial sign, a directory is just not a permitted type of sign for that. So we don't have a problem with it in terms of the design that they've come up with. It's just a matter of, is it something that we can allow in the first place?
Then maybe you can educate me.
Okay.
Educated. How does an establishment like this isn't like a little strip mall, how do they advertise who they are and who's there?
What does the
They each
sign
have a
call
facial sign on the front of their storefront, each one of them,
Which they will.
which they will.
Correct.
That's part of this
And then
proposal.
they want this in addition there too,
Correct.
Correct.
and the code doesn't permit it.
To the best that we can tell now.
The code permits additional signs for stores when they have additional visibility from additional roadways. However, the way this sign is put together with more than one, the code then says it's directory. And then, if you keep reading really hard, you find that directory is prohibited as a facial sign. So
Let me just
it's a
ask-
bit circular.
Yeah, let me ask a question, let me just get, and then.
got it.
Sure.
Because I don't know the answer. I'm not a huge guy with signs all over the place. You don't want it to look like Las Vegas. However, I'm not saying Queens, I'm saying Las Vegas.
Vegas.
People don't like it when I say
You're going
Queens
to compare
appreciates it.
Bayshore to Las Vegas.
Right, right, right. My question
Go home.
is, this is a little sui generis, this is a little unique. It's a huge mall.
It is.
How do they get, other than the signs, I mean, people look for a directory, generally. How
They do have, well, okay, not all of them are represented on it necessarily. They do have the directory on the ground sign facing towards Broadway.
It's going to be.
I'm not sure if all of them are,
We were directed that we could only permit 2 tenants on those ground signs. We
The one
had
facing
initially.
Broadway.
Oh, on Broadway.
on
No.
the one on Broadway.
Yes, they're on
People
Broadway.
don't go to the
Yeah.
mall without knowing what's there.
But that's not, that's the major tenants,
Would you rather have a lot
first
more
of all.
signs
And
or
second of
one
all,
sign than
this is visible from Church Street,
like this?
Correct.
the proposed signage.
So I'm not having an issue with it.
The only concern planning has is whether or not it is permitted or not.
And it seems
We
that there's some
reviewed it. We don't think that it
discrepancy.
is, but
And what did the size get reduced to?
7 feet.
again, though, in terms of the actual design of it, I don't have an issue with that. It's just,
7
are
feet
we
to
setting a bad precedent by
533.
now allowing this type of sign to exist? That is the only concern here.
And I know you're concerned with precedent, and I know Mr. Wexler is concerned with precedent. There are ways to limit this approval to sites that have several major tenants, several major thoroughfares that would preclude this as serving as precedent.
We should deny that for everybody else. That's okay. That's a theory.
For what it's worth, I like that logic for the reason we're giving the extra ground signs. Couldn't have said it better myself in that sense.
So you mean we can, like when Congress passes law that only affects one company, you need all these tiny little things to qualify? I mean, how many other malls would this affect?
One.
Is this like singular or maybe one other?
I mean, it would be not necessarily limited to malls, I guess. It would be anything, any kind of shopping center with multiple different tenants like this.
Yeah.
Could, in theory, use this.
So we could distinguish it in the decision.
Multiple buildings, multiple
I mean,
tenants.
this is huge. We don't know how
It
many
is.
other malls are there in Islip of this size?
Very few.
None.
So I'm following up on your point.
the South Shore Mall.
There may
It
not be
doesn't have
any,
floor
other than the South Shore Mall.
Yeah, it might be as big in area. Yeah.
Right, but any of the strip malls.
So we advertised it
She's
as
got it right.
178.8 square feet.
Ed, what are your thoughts?
Did it get
This is-
smaller or is
I
it
think
the
that's
same?
Smaller.
I'm not against it.
It did, everything got smaller.
It's roughly 135 square feet. It's hard to say because they only dimension the texture of the brick. They
I see
didn't
that.
dimension the
It
sign.
didn't add up right. Yeah.
Is there any other
Do you have
issues
to amend
that?
the call of the meeting?
Not if it's smaller, we don't need to, do we? You,
How do we know you won't try to get the bigger one if we don't fix the?
you can put that as part of the decision.
Deny and grant what? We're trying to get the number.
Well, they let them come up with a number then.
He just did.
135, 135.
Okay.
That's for building 3.
Cool.
It's for the facial.
Correct, yes.
So building 3, having additional facial signs, having an area of 135 instead of 178?
And a height of 18 feet.
Oh,
And a
we'll
height
just,
of-
oh, do we need that? If it's not, 18 feet is permitted normally, but it's questionable whether the sign is permitted at all.
So we may as well
So we'll
identify.
leave it in.
Instead of permitted 18 feet, all right, we'll leave that.
Yeah.
And 11 facial signs having height of, is that being removed or not?
No, you know what it said?
No, I think
They're all in.
It said height of 31.9 instead of permitted 18, so
Right.
I think we just take out height entirely, right?
Yeah, if they're going to comply.
Right.
Let me just, if you know,
Yeah.
take an informal poll. Dan, you good? You good?
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this matter?
Ed, you good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
We have to,
We have to amend the call first, right?
yeah, we still have some amendments to do.
I think the other 2 amendments are the Vets Highway and the Sunrise ground signs, 86 square feet. I'm not sure if there was anything else that needed to be amended, but
Nick, did you want us to change the definition of the Church Street sign from a ground sign to a public interest sign? That's up to
All right.
planning.
All it's saying is enter here, so I don't see why it couldn't be categorized as such. But,
As a public interest, just like what
That
happened
would
with
make
Target?
sense.
yeah, it's not representing anything else besides enter here.
Okay, so maybe with sign 4, we'll just say sign 4, Church Avenue, public interest sign having area of,
30.9 instead of permitted 3.
30.9?
yeah, 30.9 square feet was in the call of the meeting, but now it's instead of permitted 3, and it's a public interest sign, so it's not there's not 4 ground signs, there's 3 ground signs. Ah,
Mary, you
we'll
want
get
to,
it in the written decision.
do you want to make a proposal to amend the call? Or?
Well, it gets a little complicated here because it
That's why I asked you
says.
He's honest. He's honest.
And 4 ground signs, so we would say, change that to 3 ground signs. Yeah, it's not bad, actually. Sign 1, sign 2, and sign 3, and public interest signs, so then we eliminate the words sign 4. And Church Ave, and public interest sign having area of.
I'm gonna try and read the new call in a minute. Permission to install facial and ground signs as follows.
Sure you
Everything's-
wanna do the whole thing?
No, everything's the same until building 3. One additional facial sign having an area of 135 square feet. Facial signs having height of 25 feet instead of permitted 18 feet. Building 4 will remain the same as in the call. Building 6 will remain the same. Then we come down to 3 ground signs. Sign 1, Veterans Memorial Highway of 86 square feet. Sign 2, Sunrise Highway will be, no.
Also 86.
80
Same, 86. Yes.
Sign 2 is 86 also. Sign 4 is being removed.
Sign 4 is being removed. And it says, "and public interest sign."
Correct.
Okay, and public interest sign having area of 30 square feet instead of permitted
30.9, but
30,
30.9 instead of permitted 3.
okay, 30.9 instead of permitted 3. And the rest of the call will remain the same?
How's that sound?
That sounds correct.
Sounds good.
And if nothing else, we'll clean it up in the decision. Can I get a second on the motion to?
Second.
Want to amend?
Motion to amend.
Motion to amend.
Second, all in favor? Aye. All right, so the call's been amended. Can we get a nomination,
Nomination. You running for something tonight?
Go. Can I get a motion to accept the amended call?
You got that?
You got that?
We
No,
did that.
we modified the call.
We
Now
modified
we're
it.
Oh,
getting
now
a
you
motion
want-
to
oh.
accept
Now
it.
we have
Now he
to,
wants-
how many
now he wants
motions?
a motion.
I make a motion to accept the modification.
Yeah, he's
did that.
become a parliamentarian.
How about a motion to take the,
That's all business.
all right.
We're on new business.
Second to accept the
Second.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Application's granted.
I
that was the-
have to recuse. I
Wait,
have
oh.
a potential tenuous conflict. I don't know if it is or isn't.
All right.
And of an abundance of caution, I'm gonna recuse myself on this.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay? Just in the
Motion to
name.
grant.
Oh, he said accept the motion. I thought it was like more, I don't know.
No, I didn't think it was a final vote.
Yeah, I didn't think it was the final vote.
Grant. You?
I made the motion to
We've
grant.
approved the motion.
Yeah,
right?
we
We've
did
done
that.
it.
Yeah, then I asked for a motion to grant.
All right.
I thought it was something confusing.
Now there is
I mean,
is there a motion on the table to grant the application?
There was, Don made it.
Don made it, I seconded it, you approved it.
There we go.
Done.
That's done.
Have a great evening. Thank you, guys.
You guys should run for cover.
Yeah, get while you can.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, right.
I'm all confused.
Well, it was, you know, I wish there was a lot of debate about whether the call of the meeting should have been that long at all. And there was a lot of reasons that it didn't have to be that long. And hopefully people will understand why I try to advocate for the call of the meeting not being that long. Yeah,
Okay, we get live mics, you guys.
yeah. Hold on, Chris and recuse. Okay. Application number 117-25, Charles Arnholz Jr., Revocable Trust. Permission to erect two-story dwelling on lot having wetlands yield of 0.63 instead of required 1, and lot area of 8,791 square feet instead of required 11,250 square feet, leaving front yard of 28.2 feet and roofed-over porch leaving front yard of 22 feet instead of required 40 feet each, and floor area ratio of 29.94% instead of permitted 25%. Residence A District, west side of Shore Drive, approximately 730 feet south of Ocean View Avenue, Oakdale.
Good evening. My name is Nick Pfluger of Boller Pfluger Architects. I'm the architect on the project. We're at 85 East Main Street, Bay Shore, New York, 11706. So we're proposing to demolish the existing home on the property as it's in disrepair and build a new two-story home in its place. The existing home was a one-story dwelling. We placed the house so it's not going any closer to the rear property line or the wetlands area compared to the existing house. This also kept the house out of the FEMA zone. If it were in the FEMA zone, the house would be about 3 feet taller from grade, so that was an advantage of keeping it out of the FEMA zone.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out this wetlands yield. I've been dealing with it 15 years and having difficulty. My question to you is, you are building a new house,
Correct.
and you want to build it even further from the wetlands than the old house.
No, it's pretty much at the same spot.
Okay, but when the original house was built, they didn't have that wetlands yield formula.
Right.
And then after that house, the original house was built, the town devised this wetlands yield formula to protect the wetlands. And now you're basically saying, can I build basically what I had before the law changed?
That is correct.
My question is, didn't the law change to protect the wetlands?
I would say yes.
So this is a 37% relaxation. Why are we doing that if the very rationale for the law was to protect the wetlands, and we're not protecting the wetlands?
I mean, that's a fair question. I mean, frankly, the wetlands yield is a new thing to us too. We've actually never had that on any other project.
I would like to jump in on this one, actually. I'm pretty familiar with wetlands yield calculations. I deal with the wetlands for the town for the most part. You are correct. It's designed in the subdivision land development regulations as a way to regulate the density of the amount of houses in an area that is adjacent to wetlands. It has to apply to all new dwellings, so it is being applied here. I don't really think it's an issue in this case, though. This is already a developed lot. And so it's being called out because the lot is the size that it is. It's not, it would need to be larger in order to increase the yield. It doesn't have to do with the size of the house. It has to do with the size of the lot. So the issue then being, we created this in order to prevent density, but this area along Shore Drive is already at this density, and it's not really going to change. It's not likely to change. So it needs to be applied as per code, but I would say in this particular instance, because this is already a developed area, it's not really something that the board should consider very strongly.
How much available, I mean, this is kind of compact and densely populated area. How much open space is there that this law would actually affect? And was that the intent of the statute? I don't know. Was that the intent of the statute to say, well, if it's already been developed, whatever?
The intention was, well, it's not anything that specific, but the intention was to protect wetland areas, yes, areas adjacent to wetlands. Typically,
was it undeveloped wetlands as opposed to developed wetlands? Are you saying
usually
this
when
was-
we're applying it, it's for new construction. Things where you're tearing down an existing house and getting built back up and end up getting caught in that.
Right.
But it's in the subdivision regulations. So usually when we would actually apply and be concerned about it is in when somebody's subdividing. If somebody wanted to make something that's close by to wetlands, and per the zoning designation, they would be maybe able to yield 8 lots, then the yield calculation would come in and maybe they'd only end up like 3 or 4. That's how we would regulate the density like that. In a town like Islip, a lot of this is already developed, so it doesn't come up too terribly often. And honestly, a lot of the times it comes up, it is situations like this where we otherwise think it's not quite as applicable, but yeah, it has come up in the past in some instances where we would follow through on that. I don't believe this is one of them.
My only question is, Nick, and also you can jump in, is, I get it, and I understand it now, but it seems like every time we have a wetlands yield case, we always find, it doesn't apply. I don't think it's ever applied.
Often that is the case.
So then what's the point of the statute? I mean, it's only virgin property, I don't think we have any.
What I would say to that is that a lot of the times where it would be an issue were to come before the board, we make that point clear and it doesn't make it to the board in the first place.
Okay, all right, no, thank you.
So you're okay with the application?
I believe so, yes. I've talked
I believe
with,
so. What a
Mr.
ringing
Bruder.
endorsement, Mr. Barbarella.
Yeah, we had discussed, and I don't think this has changed since the last time we discussed it, which was a few months ago, so you forgive me, but.
Correct,
Thank you.
yes.
Is there anyone else here who'd like to be heard in this matter? No. All right. Can I get a motion to grant the application?
Motion to grant the application.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Application number 118-25, Moody Realty LLC, permission to reconstruct gasoline service station on lot having area of 33,498.4 square feet instead of required 40,000 square feet, to erect fuel canopy, leaving front yard of 31.8 feet, and commercial building, leaving front yard of 52.5 feet, instead of required 60 feet each, and to install 2 ground signs where only one is permitted. Business 3 District, southwest corner of Wheeler Road and Express Drive South, Hopop.
Okay. Fill out our sheet of me.
May I proceed?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Anthony Guardino. I'm a partner with the law firm of Farrell Fritz, and I represent 7-Eleven, which is the applicant here. And 7-Eleven is seeking 4 area variances associated with its plans to reconstruct an existing gasoline filling station and convenience store that is on the subject property, and it wishes to replace them with a slightly larger convenience store, but with a filling station that will have less gasoline pumps than are there today. Assisting with the presentation tonight are Foster Ting and Josh Herman, both with Stonefield Engineering. So this property is 33,498 square feet. It's located on the southwest corner of the LIE South Service Road in New York State Route 111, which is also known as Wheeler Road in Hopog. You have a map in your booklet there. You see the relative location of the parcel. The parcel is much wider than it is deeper. It has 215 feet of frontage on the LIE Service Road and only about 130 feet deep at its narrowest point. It is Zone B3. It is improved with almost a 1,500 square foot convenience store today, also with gasoline filling station, and that gasoline filling station has 5 parallel pumps, which is the equivalent of 8 dispensing positions. And you have some photos in your booklet of the site. The parcel, because it is located on 2 heavily traveled New York State roadways, it is surrounded by commercial uses to the south and west, and then, of course, to the LIE and Route 111 to the north and east, respectively. The closest residences to this site are across Route 111, to this, I guess, the east and southeast, and they're a significant distance away. So what 7-Eleven is seeking is permission to improve the site by demolishing the existing convenience store. It has signed a lease, so it is now controlling the site. It wants to demolish the 1,500 square foot convenience store and replace it with a new, almost 3,000 square foot store. The new building and canopy will be architecturally superior to what's there today. If you look at the site, it's pretty tired. It was an older convenience store, at least going back to the 90s. It is smaller than today's standard for a convenience store, and not very attractive. While the new convenience store is going to be larger than the one that's there today, the number of gasoline dispensing pumps has been reduced, as I mentioned, from 5 pumps to 4, so now there will only be, instead of 10 dispensing positions, there will be only 8. And at the suggestion of the planning department, the new convenience store will have, they call it a home plate design, if you look at the site plan. So it's a home plate configuration, and it will be located in the southwest corner of the site, and that is to maximize parking and internal traffic circulation. Back in, we've been working on this for a while, so back in October of 2021, the planning board approved the conceptual site plan and granted several site plan modifications. We then had to go to the town board for a modification of a covenant because the covenant restricted the size of the convenience store to just 1,500 square feet. So that was from 1995, and the board unanimously granted that relief to amend the covenant. So what we have before you, which again is developed with the guidance of the planning department, is going to require 4 variances. One is to reconstruct the gasoline filling station and convenience store on a lot with an area of 33,498 square feet. The code requires 40,000 square feet, so we're close, but we're not close enough. The gas pump canopy will have a front yard setback from the LIE service road of only 31.8 feet instead of the required 60 feet. The convenience store will have a front yard setback from the LIE service road of 52.5 feet, where 60 feet is required. And then finally, the applicant is proposing 2 ground signs where only 1 is permitted. When you look at this relief, you'll see that some of it appears to be substantial, at least with the exception of the building setback variance. But if you look closer, you'll see that all of the relief either represents an existing condition or actually an improvement over what's there today. So for instance, with respect to lot area, the existing lot area is the lot area. It's now supporting a convenience store and a gas station. It will continue to support a convenience store and a gas station. But again, it'll be a smaller gas station than what is there today. With respect to the setback from the gas pump or for the gas pump canopy, almost the entirety of the existing canopy is actually encroaches into the front yard. A very small area does not. So almost the entire canopy is encroaching today on the front yard setback from the LIE service road. 7-Eleven is proposing a much smaller canopy that will be placed on an angle, so it's parallel to the front door of the building, and that will result in less than half of the new canopy being in the front yard setback. So that is an improvement. With respect to the relief needed for the 2 ground signs, there are already 2 ground signs on the property. And you have something there in your book. I had the photographs that show the signs that are there today. There's 1 pylon sign, there's 1 monument sign.
Are they
Pylon
CO'd?
sign. What's that?
Are they CO'd, those signs?
As far as I know, yes.
I don't think we see our signs.
As far as I know,
As
yes.
far as I know,
Okay,
the answer is
and
yes. No
no.
one has raised any question. I don't know for certain.
To be clear, we don't CO signs,
Yeah.
so don't get yourself in trouble.
Okay, I won't get myself in trouble. Thank you.
But they were shown ultimately on the approved site plan because the Board of Appeals approved them, application number 281-95.
Okay, so that's the
Okay.
equivalent of a CO. I'm-
Perfect, thank you.
No, that's not a CO.
So what 7-Eleven is looking to do is to reface the pylon sign that's on the west side. So you have the pictures, the existing sign and the proposed sign in your booklet, I think at Exhibit 8 or 9. And you'll see that it's the same sign. They're just putting a new face on it, so that's not changing. But if you look at the monument sign that is actually on the property today, that sign is being replaced with a slightly smaller sign. The sign that's there was out there today. I measured it. It's about a third larger than what's being proposed. What the applicant is looking to do is just move the sign closer, slightly closer to the corner, because it's just more effective there. So you have 2 signs there today, and there will be 2 signs there if this board grants the relief. And then finally, with respect to the relief for the building setback from the LIE service road, that small corner of the building is located, it encroaches 7.5 feet into the front yard setback of the LIE. I submit that that is a modest deviation. It's only 12.5% from what the code requires. And again, this encroachment is the result, and gratefully the result of the help and assistance of the planning department in reconfiguring the site and orienting the building into the corner of the site. But just because of its shape and its location, you have a small corner that just pierces the front yard setback line. So that's the end of, it concludes my presentation. I have Foster Ting if you want to hear about the site plan, or if you get it, I don't know if it's necessary. I think it will just stop right there, and happy to answer any questions the board has.
Any questions from the board at this time?
No questions.
Mr. Barbello, any questions, comments?
Sorry. I don't really have much to add to it. I think the most important part of that was that everything is either an existing condition or an improvement on what was previously there. So, yeah, it is fine.
Does anyone else would like to be heard in this application? All right, I'll take a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the application.
All in favor? Aye. Application is granted.
Great, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Good
to see you.
There we go.
Application number 49-25, adjourned from January 21, 2025. Lisa Giordano, permission to leave boat berth on lot having water frontage of 23.5 feet instead of required 35 feet, Second-story deck, 11.9 by 15.8, having rear yard of 15 feet instead of required 25 feet. Shed having side yard of 0.2 feet instead of required 2 feet. Driveway having side yard of 3 feet instead of required 4 feet. And 6-foot fence on property line not having required setback of 15 feet. Residence A District, southeast corner of Cedar Point Drive and Driftwood Drive, West Islip.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. John Armentano from Farrell Fritz, representing the applicant. We have additional paperwork being submitted. We were here a few weeks ago, and the board had requested that we provide the pleadings associated with this issue. As the board is aware, we are in litigation, and at
Where
this...
are we at in this litigation, Mr. Armentano?
We have 4 pending motions. The most recent is a motion for default, as in the plaintiff failed to answer our cross-claim. So we have made that motion and are awaiting a decision.
Mr. Armentano,
Yes.
maybe you could help us out. I remember this somewhat. This has to do with riparian rights. This has to do with 2 property owners, and it's an L, and one property owner has pilings and wants to put their vessel, their boat, perpendicular to their property, and the other property owner maintains that you are blocking my riparian rights because I can't get my vessel or my boat into my slip.
Those are the allegations, correct? Just to be clear, my client, Lisa Giordano, who's here tonight as well, does not own or have any pilings on or in front of her property. She has a 24-foot wide bulkhead/berth, which is on her property.
Which, if I recall correctly, is smaller than the minimum.
Under the current code that was adopted in 1980, correct, it is
I mean, with the current code adopted in 1980, is there some other code?
Well, this subdivision was approved prior to that. The subdivision that this originated from was in 1966, so we predate that requirement of 35 feet.
So let me just ask, so we set the table, so to speak. Your client boat, is it going to be hoved up or parallel to the bulkhead or perpendicular and stick out?
It will be, as it is currently shown in that aerial photograph, perpendicular.
Okay.
Correct.
So, is this photograph an accurate depiction of, or has things changed and we shouldn't rely on it? Because we see, it looks like 2 boats and then a third one that is hoved up to the bulkhead. Is that the configuration, or is that just, happens to be an extra boat docked there that day?
No, this is generally the configuration. Mrs. Giordano's boat is located in the center. The property to the south is an adjoining property owner to the south. The litigant, the plaintiff, his property and his boat is located to the north, so there will be no additional boats.
And you, hang on, no, ma'am, you can't, let your lawyer speak. So your client's property is the one with the boat where the bow is almost touching the bulkhead, correct?
Correct, it is the center boat in that photograph.
Okay, and it's the property to the north is the other side, and the other side says they cannot maneuver their vessel in because of your client's vessel where it's situated. Is that basically?
That is the allegations in the riparian rights issue, yes.
Okay, so here's my question, and we may be able to move this along. Riparian rights are generally not with the zoning. We're usually like land, terra firma, but that's okay. In this case, my understanding, and you probably are more up on riparian rights than I am since you have this case pending, but riparian rights are a form of equity, correct? What's
Declaratory
reasonable?
relief.
That is correct, it is a real, yes.
And we can, I don't think this board can make a determination whether or not the property owner to the north can reasonably maneuver their boat in or not. I don't know if we have that ability. My thought process is that's something that's going to be the subject of hearings, testimony. I mean, I've tried admiralty cases and captains testified. I don't know if we're set up to make that determination.
I could answer that question for you, yes, with the law,
And I'm
yes.
thinking we may want to just
No,
Were
I'm
we
agreeing
planning
with
on hearing the merits of this tonight? I thought they were just gonna provide us information on the status of the litigation.
Well, they did.
They did, they gave us the pleadings, and I've read the pleadings.
Oh, we.
But I think what Mr. Wexler is saying, though, is, look, we can't do a factual hearing like the court can. Second of all, I don't know it's up to this board to declare who has riparian property rights. That's a rather large statement. Usually you get a 14-year term when you get to make that determination. So anything we decide can basically be thrown out in the court anyway with a decision by a Supreme Court judge. Am I right?
Correct. There is significant case law on that subject matter. Erico versus Weinstein was decided in 2008. Competing riparian.
What is the case law regarding whether we have the authority to hear it and decide it, or whether there's riparian this issue?
Well, I'll answer that question. It's found and was for an issue such as this with a concentric situation with competing riparian rights, and the court said it is a legal issue which properly falls with the court's power to declare and resolve conflicting property rights claims, and it went on to hold that neither the DEC nor the town of Hempstead nor the county had the jurisdiction to render a riparian rights determination, which is the gravis of this case.
Right. And once the decision's made, then that could be put before us if some sort of variance is needed, correct?
That is
There has to be
correct.
determination on property rights, which doesn't come out of the zoning board.
So what is your suggestion with that issue for us tonight?
I think the application, that part of the application is premature.
I think that's correct. Diane? I agree.
Yep.
Yep, okay.
What was the case?
So what, if that is premature and we're going to excise that from our determination, what is left, if anything? The shed and the driveway. I think we're all in agreement.
And a fence.
We're not a riparian rights board. That's squarely in.
Right, there needs to be a declaration of property rights, and then
Planning, aside from the riparian rights, how are you on the rest of the application?
So as you're saying, there's 4 other matters that are before the board right now. There is the matter of the shed, the driveway, second-story deck, and the fence. Right off the bat, the shed in the driveway is not something that I'm particularly concerned about. It's well within what the board would normally grant. The second-story deck with the rear yard of 15 instead of 25, this is facing towards the neighbor. I believe actually that neighbor would be the one that they are currently in litigation with. May be able to speak to that if he wants to. But yeah, I believe that's probably an issue, second-story deck. I don't know exactly how high in the air it is. I don't know if you could speak to that, but.
Would you like to address the deck, please?
I can address the deck, and the other
And then the
issue-
fence is also a bit of a strange situation.
Right, again, just to kind of, I'll take the fence first, and then I'll get to the deck, because that
Yeah.
might be the only thing we can talk about tonight. The issue, and we had submitted previously a document, the interesting part about this property is that it is a portion of the roadway, and you can see in the GIS, when the subdivision was laid out, they had this ellipse or something which was never improved or paved by the town. So the issue there is the property line is highlighted in blue. We have been in discussions for several months with the town. We have received an appraisal. The town is considering the partial abandonment of that area of the roadway because it has never been used by the town. It's an oddity. This property has a lot of oddities, but this ellipse seems to have been part of when the subdivision map was created. We are in discussions with the town. We are seeking the partial abandonment of that area so that we would basically run from curb to curb, and we have an appraisal done by the town. I've been working with Amy Murphy for the transaction. We have dealt with his assessor for that.
Counsel?
Yes.
Jordan?
We can grant the subject to.
Yes.
Is this even right to be heard then, the fence?
I believe so, yes. You can always make it subject to.
Yeah, right.
They are in discussion with the town attorney's office about acquiring that parcel.
So if we make it subject to, then
I don't know where
it's subject to.
However, I think Nick has some comments.
Yeah, the only issue with that is it's not clear what the setback will end up being once that land is purchased. I don't know if it'll be conforming necessarily. It might still be 1 or 2 or 5, so.
So is it may be premature? How do we make a decision on something that may or may not happen in the future, and we don't know to what extent?
I assume
That's the concern, I suppose, but.
When it got inspected, that's why they came up.
That is correct. This property was built in 1966. It has been transferred over a number of years. This oddity has existed for time, for 60 years. In this configuration, the fence has been in this location for decades.
Yeah, let's just hear it without prejudice. Just like we're gonna do the riparian rights.
Yeah.
Okay, would you like to address the deck?
Okay, we'll take the last one. The deck issue, again, I understand the concerns of the planning department, but I would raise to the planning department the precedent that was set by this board in the vicinity of the subject property. This was a decision, application 624 of 19, decided on September 4th.
Is that in this book?
It was in a prior, we had submitted, I can hand, yeah, it's the first book, yes.
And is that within a 500-foot radius?
It is in very close proximity. I don't know if we can run it, but it is within this community. If you
Well, we
could,
need 500 foot is our.
Is this in the book you submitted?
the first hearing, that is correct.
Volume 1.
Correct, volume 1, exhibit 6.
Exhibit 6, thank you.
Yes. So Nick, if you wouldn't mind zooming out to 172 Anchorage Drive.
But, Mr. Armentano, let's say it is within 500 foot.
Yes.
And let's say it was granted, and let's say it's a singular precedent.
Yes.
You know our general distaste for second floor decks that are this close to the property line. Why should we grant it?
Because this board granted,
Well, that's one.
well, I
Is
know
that
the.
19 feet.
Well,
Is that the nature and character of the neighborhood?
I think it is. I would say that as this decision was rendered, there was a rear yard of 13 feet instead of the 25. So that is a
13 instead of what?
25.
I think I provided that to your office when you asked me if there were any
Yes, I did.
fires,
Yes, you
and I
did.
think I measured and I told you it was 1,100 feet away.
Okay, what the character,
Well,
I know.
That's a certain.
It's funny how people only relay a little bit of what I say.
No, I'm not suggesting that,
Well,
I wouldn't say, just for the record, that the courts adhere to the 500-foot rule.
There was an appellate division case, I believe it was King or Brady on Fire Island, where the court affirmed our 500-foot radius position.
I'm aware of that. I think it's a different situation.
Well, so the
I'm
1,100 foot.
I'm reading this
just
for the
in-
first time, but it says, application was amended at the applicant's request to delete from consideration permission to erect a second-story deck 10 by 13.
Yeah, the reason I sent it was the bulkhead request.
Oh,
So I don't think that was granted.
well, listen, you can't win them all, right?
So it wasn't even granted.
Not the
It
deck.
seems to be deleted from the call.
And it's 1,100 foot away, that's out.
Well, I do think the board may want to consider the factual situation that it has been there for a number of years. Just for the record, I understand the board's decision and their thinking on this matter.
So the record's clear, there's no precedent, and we have a precedent of not allowing encroachments of that degree for second floor deck. I mean, that's clear. You were sitting here tonight when you heard that same words come out of my mouth. So, okay, so we have the shed, the driveway, the issue, the second-story deck, and the fence, and the riparian rights, which you know what we're gonna do. Is there anything else?
I guess my only question, as requested by my client, is there ability to lower the deck for a walkout to, say, a 5-foot height deck? Is that permitted, or that's not a second-story deck anymore? I'm not asking for the advice, I'm just curious if that can be done.
Well, if that's the case,
Yeah, if we can lower the deck.
I don't know, that's beyond us. Yeah, I don't know, you should talk to Tony about that.
I will do that, that's fine.
Yeah, that's
48 inches, right?
Yeah, 48 inches, I believe. If it's 48 inches or above, you need to maintain the same setback as the house. I think if it's less, you might do better than that.
Yeah. might
That's
be
off the top of my head, so.
That's fine, we'll take a look at it, I just was in the discussion.
No.
All right, anything else? Planning?
I believe that covers everything.
Okay. Is anyone else would like to be heard in this matter? If you'd like to be heard, please come forward, sir.
Come on down.
Good evening, Frank DiGilio, 159 Driftwood Drive. I am the litigator in this conversation.
A litigant or a litigator?
Litigant?
Are you an attorney?
Are you a
No.
party to the litigation?
Yes.
Yes,
He's a plaintiff.
Okay,
Yes.
you're a litigant.
litigant,
He's the neighbor.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I just don't know where we're leaving off here. What's being discussed tonight, what's not being discussed tonight, what's,
In essence, we haven't voted yet, but it seems like we're gonna let the judge make a decision before we do.
okay, I mean,
On the riparian rights issue, that is.
Okay, and then the fence issue, the same?
No, the fence issue, we're not sure exactly right now. how we're gonna
The
decide.
issue with the fence is they're purchasing property, or they're in talks to purchase.
Well,
property
we've
from
we've
Town of
spoken
Iceland.
to we've spoken to Miss Murphy as well. You know, the fence is, I mean, I don't know how the subdivision was originally, but the fence, where the fence sits now, it blocks a blind curve. I mean, you're down the street from St. John's, two elementary schools, the hospital. This route, Driftwood Drive, Beach Drive, Snedecore, is kind of a back around route from all those items. During school let out, during shift change at Good Sam, the block becomes a parking lot.
But we have a more preliminary issue than that. Your attorney, Mr. Armentano, advised us.
No, he's on the other side.
Oh, your attorney, right. We've been advised that they're in the process of speaking with the town.
And the problem is, once that issue, until that issue is resolved, we don't know what setback would.
Okay, and I agree with, and I understand that, but, you know, if you're trying to make a decision with something, I
No,
think
we're
that-
saying we
not.
can't make a
We're not
decision.
gonna
Okay,
change
well,
that.
sorry, then that
we
wasn't
literally
clear.
cannot.
That wasn't clear. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, we take issue with the fence and obviously the boat, if you.
Right, we don't know what the town's gonna do with them. We can't do anything yet, because it's not before us.
I guess understood. I mean, then that's,
What's your,
my two objections are with the boat and the fence. Other
Not
than
the
that,
deck.
I don't particularly have other objections.
what about the deck?
The deck's been there, we don't take a particular issue with the deck. That's not really, you know, the boat's the issue.
No, I just want to see his opinion.
No,
Okay,
it doesn't.
Thank you, sir.
So as far as the fence, if we could just talk about that for a second. And
Yeah,
Nick
this-
and I agree that the zoning denial was written to address the fence having a front yard, on the front property line, not having a setback of 15. So that means it's intending to address only the primary front, which is facing west.
The one on Cedar.
So all the fencing would simply have not been included in the zoning denial that you're seeing there, that is towards the center of the cul-de-sac that never got built. That wasn't addressed in the call of the meeting. So the dangerous part that you're talking about, and I agree that it might likely be dangerous, is not being addressed in the call of the meeting. So any implication that we're making, that we're considering
Yeah, it's
approving it
really the
is-
entire fence, even the front fence, and I had spoke to Nick also about this, that I understand there's a difference between Town of Islip code versus Town of Brookhaven code, that the fence can be forward of the house, which I was not aware of. But even the front fence, as it stands, is forward of the house by 15 feet or so. It adds to the, you know, the blocking of view around the curve. It's not
Yeah.
just the side yard.
Declined to address the fence, right?
Yeah, yeah, but I don't want to imply that it's staying.
For what it's worth, even after the purchase goes through, presumably, I find it difficult to believe that the fence will end up getting granted. I'm not sure what the merits of giving the grant for that would be in that case. I can't say that definitively, because the situation is not fully understood, but it seems unlikely.
Dismiss it without prejudice.
That's what we
Let's
just
see
said.
what they do.
Yeah, we just said.
I just presumed that the town attorney's office would rectify.
Jordan, what sayeth you?
Anything else, sir?
What?
What
No.
sayeth you?
No, that's
Without
all I
prejudice
have.
or dismiss?
Thank you.
Dismiss?
On the fence.
On the fence?
Oh, just the fence.
Sir, you need to speak? Yeah. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Dr. William Marletta. I have the residence which is south of the case in question here.
What's the street address, sir?
143 Cedar Point Drive.
Thank you.
Okay. I also own the boat that's on the bottom of the picture, right there.
Gotcha.
Okay. Giordano's boat's in the middle, and DiGiglio's boat's at the top on the north side. I came here today to speak to the fact that the shed is on the border of my property. That's my fence between the two houses, Giordano's and the house at the bottom of the picture. I have no problem at all with the placement of the shed too close to the fence line, I have no problem with that. I have no problem at all with the deck, the way the deck is, the height of the deck, appearance of the deck, the projection of the deck. I have no dog in this fight. The only thing that, I don't know what the driveway issue is, but I'm here to give you my own comments and input in helping you make a decision.
Okay, thank you,
And
Doctor.
and the poles that are there are mine as well as 175 feet of riparian rights from the bulkhead out into the water. That's all my water. Okay?
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to add? or-
Well, I think everybody likes the deck, so maybe you can set a precedent with that.
Except for Mr. Wexler.
He's not the most impacted.
The only other comment I would make is that the issue with respect to the fence, I think there's a jurisdictional issue with respect to the board's ability, as it knows, to be granting variances beyond property owned by the property applicant. So I would encourage you to delay that determination, whatever it may be, until we have title to the property that we are requesting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think I got it. Want to do it?
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to make a motion, and it's as follows. The first issue is riparian rights, that the board declined to address that issue for a number of reasons. Most, it may be beyond our purview, and more importantly, it's pending an actions in Supreme Court, Suffolk County. With respect to the shed and the driveway, I'd make a motion that we approve. The second-story deck, we deny. And the fence, we also decline to address at this juncture because we just don't have enough information as to whether or not the applicant's going to acquire certain property, how much it's going to be, and if that property will be sufficient, which it may or may not be. That would be my motion.
I would second that motion.
Okay. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye, so the call is, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when you type this out, decline to address, is it fair to say dismiss?
Very judicial.
That's what Shire used to say.
Deny it without prejudice.
Deny without prejudice.
Well, I can't mark it off entirely, because now we have a partial decision.
We're still
Mark
on
the
the
other
record.
one.
without prejudice.
We're still on the record.
We could have amended
Dismiss without prejudice.
We're still live.
Dismiss without prejudice.
Okay, guys, we have, I should pass this up.
You don't have to give one to the stenographer. We got one decision, guys. We're still live.
Okay, everybody, no, you're not involved. Okay, I have no one to look at, but one application to read in tonight's record, All Nations Services, Inc., 6 Viking Drive, West Islip. In accordance with a proposed written decision dated March 4, 2025, the application is denied as to the addition to the dwelling having 3 stories and a floor area ratio of 45.5%. Denied as submitted as to rear yard landscaping of 20.9%. However, applicant is permitted to maintain rear yard landscaping of no less than 30% and granted the remainder of the application. On motion of?
Motion.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Carried by a vote of 4 to nothing. Mr. McCabe recusing. Okay, Ken, that's a wrap. Wait, hold on, I gotta ask a question.
Qualify as a caregiver, is like